I also want to talk to you about the threat of judicial activism and what that means to us and what that means to our freedoms and to our values. For so many years, we thought you only had to worry about judicial activism when it came to the federal courts, especially the United States Supreme Court. How many times have we just shook our heads and thought, how in the world did they conclude that? How many times have we gotten so frustrated when it seems like they're more worried with opinion polls and international precedent instead of just doing their jobs, reading the Constitution and applying it fairly? Indeed, some of these judges, they actually make the replacement refs in the NFL look like geniuses by comparison with their play calls. But you know, it started at the federal courts, but now it's coming, this judicial activism is coming to our state courts as well. I want to give you an example from my state. There was a federal court case made it all the way to the United States Supreme Court. It was the Kennedy case, and it basically involved in Louisiana. My first term as governor, we had a death penalty. And in state law, we had the death penalty for those monsters that rape our children. Now, I know capital punishment should only be reserved for the most heinous of crimes. And we said, this seems to us like this would be a good crime where, you know, again, it has to be voted by the jury. It doesn't happen every time, but in the worst cases, this needs to be something a jury has at least as an option. And I will spare you the graphic details. We had a horrific case involving a 9-year-old girl and her stepfather, and he hurt her so badly she will never be able to have children as an adult. He was given, the offender in this case, Patrick Kennedy, was given the death penalty by a jury. Went all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court not only removed the death penalty from him, but threw out the death penalty for all child rapists. And said this, said there was a growing national consensus against the use of the death penalty for child rapists. Somebody has got to tell me where in the Constitution, because I don't see it in my copy, where in the Constitution does it say that our Supreme Justices, that our courts are supposed to look to opinion polls when they decide cases? I thought it was their job to simply read the Constitution. And now we've got that same issue right here in the state of Iowa. You've got a Justice Wiggins, who apparently being on the Supreme Court's not enough. You would think that'd be a full-time job. But apparently he wants to do the job of the legislature and the governor as well. You know, I don't have any problem with Justice Wiggins proposing liberal views. I don't have any problem with him wanting to espouse his views on marriage or whatever else he chooses to opine on. But if he wants to make law, he needs to do that by running for the legislature, not from the bench of the Supreme Court of the great state of Iowa. This is a pretty simple election. It really comes down to this. And Bob said this so clearly, and he said this so well. The reality is today we're talking about redefining marriage. If the court is allowed to impose and write their own laws and their own views and overturn those that are done by our duly elected representatives, what's to stop them? Today it's marriage. Tomorrow it may be property rights. Maybe it's Second Amendment rights. We have got to take a stand against judicial activism and say we understand that there are separation of powers, there are checks and balances built into our system. Again, this isn't about Judge Wiggins' liberal views. If he wants to espouse those views, God bless him, and I wish him luck as he runs for the legislature. I wouldn't recommend you vote for him, but I wish him luck if he decided he wanted to go and run for that office. But as long as he's on the court, he's got to take his oath seriously. But he's not willing to do that. It is up to us to make him take his oath seriously by voting no for Justice Wiggins this fall. Let's remember, this election is about not only sending a message, we won't tolerate judicial activism in the state of Iowa. It's also about making sure we leave freedom, we leave the American dream for our children and grandchildren. This may be the most important election of our lifetimes. Let's make sure we show up and vote. God bless y'all. Thank y'all very much.